Welcome, everyone. Put your name, pronouns, city, your tribal land you reside on, and when and where you did your climate reality training. That would be great. You can see my example there. Next slide. And this is today's agenda. Again, just a welcome, and we're going to do a land acknowledgement. Then our chair will do chapter overview and a overview of the IRA. We'll have one breakout room talking about why we became climate leaders, and then we'll have our Climate Moment co-chair talking about delivering an IRA-focused climate presentation. We're going to take a screen break, and then we're going to come back and hear from one of our chapter rock stars, Wei-Tai Kwok, about strategies to personalize your slideshow. And then we're going to hear from Gary White, who is he is our past presentations chair, and he'll talk about finding opportunities to present. And then we'll have another screen break. We'll go into casual and one-on-one climate conversations. And then Harriet Harvey-Horn, who is our past co-chair of the chapter, will talk about tabling tips and tricks. And then we'll talk about future actions. And we'll have an optional hangout and the opportunity to ask more questions and have more discussions if folks want to hang out for another few minutes after the program. And today's goals, one of our main goals is just to strengthen your IRA presentation skills. We want to give you an opportunity to practice telling your personal story and what motivated you to become a climate leader. And with Wei-Tai's presentation, you'll learn how to create your own slide decks. And with Gary's presentation, learn how to market and land presentations. I'm going to talk about engaging in effective casual climate conversations. And most importantly, it gives us an opportunity to connect and have fun with our fellow climate reality leaders. And I would like to introduce Siri. Siri is, she's one of our climate justice co-chairs. And she has two other co-chairs that she works with, Alma and Tiffany. Siri she was born and raised in Blackfoot Confederacy territory, currently known as Calgary in Alberta, Canada. And she attended the Climate Reality July 2020 virtual training. She helps people move through climate grief and anxiety using a technique called belief repatterning, and she resides on the unceded occupied coast Miwok territory north of San Francisco. So Siri, thank you so much for doing the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Bonnie. My people came from southern China in the 1890s to Canada, and I currently live on the unceded occupied coast Miwok territory in Navajo, north of San Francisco. And when thinking about the work that we do here in the Bay Area and around the world to end the global climate crisis and racism, which is at the root, racism and colonialism, which are at the root, I think a lot about how Indigenous people consist of less than 5% of the world population and yet protect 80% of global biodiversity, according to National Geographic. And their efforts to protect Indigenous sovereignty and treaty rights and to revitalize language and land care practices have kept billions of tons of carbon in the ground, equivalent to 1/4 of the annual emissions from both the US and Canada combined, according to a 2021 report called Indigenous Resistance Against Carbon. I encourage all of us to think about the land and the original peoples of these lands from your own family's perspective. I have concluded that supporting Indigenous rights is the most effective solution to the climate crisis, because there's so many reasons, but it's just a different worldview, which does not involve dynamics that brought us to this climate crisis in the first place, is a major one. And also, reconnecting with the land is, I keep on learning more things about that. Part of it is fun. I mean, a lot of it is fun. Like, I've learned how to build a 100% sustainable canoe out of tule grass last year by connecting with local Coast Miwok folks. So I encourage everybody to educate yourselves and make connections with local Indigenous folks in your area. And I will put for Bay Area people, but it's open to anybody. I will put a link in the chat to a Sonoma-based and Indigenous women-led group that is conducting webinars on how to do your own land acknowledgement. And I encourage everybody to sign up for that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Siri. Next, we'll hear from Pam Allio, who is our current Climate Reality Bay Area chapter chair. She served as our chapter's communication chair for 2.5 years, following growing a team of 3 to 20 plus volunteers across all marketing channels. She trained in July 2020 at the first virtual training, and she serves as a strategic marketing director for Cisco Systems Engineering Sustainability Office, and she lives in Danville, California. And Pam will give a chapter overview and also kind of a more general view of the IRA. Thanks, Pam.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you, Siri, for that beautiful tribute. It's been, just so you guys know, our climate justice team really leads the World for Climate Reality Project and the work they do on behalf of Indigenous people and education. So thank you, Siri. Thanks, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm in the midst of a power outage, so I'm powering from my phone. It's like, way to be resilient. So I'm just going to lay some of the ground rules for those of you who are climate reality leaders, and everybody should be on the call. We're all familiar with these, but just to remind everybody about the respectful, productive communications that we want to have today. Number 1 is make space and take space. Number 2, speak from your own experience instead of generalizing. Number 3, seek to understand by practicing active listening. Number 4, embrace productive discomfort. Number 5, assume good intentions. Number 6, intent does not negate impact. Number 7, disagree without discord. And number 8, accept that there is no quick fix. And that's what we're all here with hope that the solutions we have will drive forward. I like to put this up because this is our chapter charter agreement that the new incoming chair needs to sign every year. And the purpose of our chapter is to promote and advance Climate Reality's mission and vision within the chapter's community. And we're required to conduct all activities in accordance with the law, in alignment with the priorities and values of climate reality, and with the highest integrity. So who we are, we're a membership, a blended group. We have trained climate reality leaders, community members. It's about half and half with concerned citizens that come together to do positive action around climate justice and climate change in the Bay Area. We were founded in 2015 by Wei-Tai Kwok, who's on the call. And we have over 1,600 members right now from all races, disciplines, generations. And our purpose is to deliver with climate reality projects, broad climate action to strive for climate justice and mobilize a grassroots organization. Apologies, my kitten was on my lap. I have a new kitten, so he's going to be distracting me during this presentation. As I said, we have 1,600 members from 8 counties, our 6 policy action squads from Alameda, Contra Costa, the Marin Sonoma, San Francisco, San Mateo, and Solano and Napa. Santa Clara is the only county that has their own, and that's the Silicon Valley chapter. I have this, and I'll put it in the chat after this presentation to be able to join your local county squad. That's one of our goals for this year, because taking local community action action is where we can really make a difference in our own communities. This is, what would GORE do? We are a 501c3 classification. It's an educational mission with no language to support a political party or candidate. We are and represent the Climate Reality Bay Area chapter. And ask yourself, when in doubt, when you're giving a presentation, what would GORE do? And to me, that means based on fact and thinking with intent, and that everybody has good intent, all the rules we outlined before. And this is a presentation from the June Las Vegas training with many of us from the Bay Area, either mentoring or attending in person. And it was a wonderful experience to do that. Our vision is to see the Bay Area and California lead the nation and the world in adopting solutions to climate change and instilling climate justice to build a sustainable, resilient, healthy, safe, and thriving future for all. This is a vision that our leadership team revisits every year and does a little fine-tuning to it. Our mission is to achieve progress on climate action, climate justice, and climate policy. And more importantly is how we'll achieve this mission. This is something our team outlines every year. What are our goals? So our 2023 goals are to build an inclusive climate community with opportunities for connection and engagement. And now we're so happy we're moving to in-person, and that offers a whole other level. Engage, educate, inform, and mobilize people, governments, and organizations. And we do that through our communications team, presentations, events, and whatnot. Influence the adoption of climate and climate justice policies at all levels, and that's through our policy action squads, our federal leaders, and our climate moment action teams. Advocate for decarbonizing the built environment and energy infrastructure through electrification of buildings and transportation. Help to implement and influence Bay Area communities around federal and state climate legislation. Build productive alliances with other climate organizations. And establish efficient onboarding and chapter operations to support current and new members. With 1,600 members, if we reach out to everybody and they influence others, that then we're well on our way to broadening the scope and reach of our mission. As I mentioned, we're the largest chapter. This number doesn't represent the 1,600, but you can see the two largest are in California. Now I'm going to switch to the April training. So I don't know how many of you went through the training in April, if you want to raise your hand, on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. So I'm just going to run through some highlights of this, and then Audrey's going to give you the pitch. So it's projected to reduce U.S. emissions by roughly 40% by 2030 to the 05 levels. And it could cut annual emissions equal to taking over 215 million gas-powered vehicles off the road, or shuttering 268 coal-fired power plants. And families could save up to $1,800 in energy costs each year by utilizing programs to switch electricity. Some important points that I wanted to make, and these were from Al Gore's slide, just on climate justice and what it delivers, is this historic $60 billion for frontline communities. So if you look at this $3 billion for community-led projects, $27 billion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and $8 billion dedicated to clean energy for disadvantaged communities. Those are all things that we need to help our local legislatures and states implement at that level. Some other ones, from frontline communities, just this, more than $4 billion to cut air pollution near frontline communities, and $3 billion to reduce pollution from ports that affect lower income communities of color. So this is something that our chapter can help hold this government and our country accountable to make sure that happens for these people. Global implications, right? It can be the turning point for the U.S. and we can be seen back as a global leader on climate action and a nation that delivers on its promises, providing $1.5 billion to monitor methane emissions. And it can help keep the Paris Agreement alive and allow other nations to follow suit. Jobs in the economy, right, is projected to create at least 1.5 million new jobs by 2030. The bill provides $2 billion to convert existing auto manufacturers into clean vehicle producers. This just came out yesterday, right? Ford Motor Company plans to make as many 2 million EVs by 2026, a huge increase from the roughly 132,000 it produced last year. So we're going to see a big increase. I just bought my first EV at the end of last year. So great news news on that front. And the IRA has dedicated $200 million to help states train contractors in the energy efficient and electrification sector. The two actions that really came out that Climate Reality Project at a headquarter level wants us to take is to help spread the word. And that's what you're going to learn how to do today, and take the pledge to electrify your life as an individual. These links, and I'll put those in the chat after I'm done. One will bring you to the Our Climate Moment Acts to Action campaign and finding out more. And you're going to hear about it from Audrey in a little bit, how to deliver that. And the other one is the pledge to electrify your life and what you can take to do in your own home. So with that, I think I'm turning it back to Bonnie.
Thanks a lot, Pam. I appreciate all that information. That overview, I think, is really helpful. So now we're going to do a little breakout session. And the breakout session is going to be, all right, I think we have most people back. And first of all, we're going to move on to the next thing on our agenda. And that will be with our Audrey Heller, who is our Chapter Policy Action and our Climate Moment co-chair, who has been getting a crash course in civics and federal policy over the last few years. She trained in the first virtual training in 2020. She's an artist and arts advocate who enjoys connecting people through creativity and collaboration. And she lives in Berkeley, where her art studio is also located. Thanks, Audrey. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks. It was wonderful to hear from folks. I love the people that I meet through this work. It's such a passionate group, and it makes me feel so hopeful. So I'm going to talk a little about the Our Climate Moment project, and then I'm going to do a sort of sample presentation for you based on that. As you know, a lot of you who did the Power Up training, the current National Our Climate Moment project from Acts to Action is designed to create an Inflation Reduction Act implementation squad to educate people about the benefits available through the IRA. Alongside with that, as we do these presentations, we're trying to get a feel for how people are using the IRA benefits, what the problems are, who's being left out. And we're reporting some of that feedback back to Climate Reality to sort of hone our advocacy efforts. And we will modify our presentation as we go along. So I hope you're all seeing my slides. Can I get a thumbs up that slides are showing? Yes, I think we're good. Okay, awesome. So welcome. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I'm excited about this topic because it has the potential for doing a lot of good for our planet, for our communities, and for our own economic well-being. You may wonder why a climate group is excited about the Inflation Reduction Act. It does not feel like a climate topic. How are they connected? Well, the Climate Reality Project is committed to working towards a rapid and just transition to clean energy. Breaking our dependence on fossil fuel is the most important step we can take. We've known the problems for decades, but the solutions have been hard to find or hard to afford until now. Now we do have the solutions at hand. We have all of the technologies that we need, along with proven deployment models to cut emissions almost in half within the next 7 years. That's from the International Energy Agency, and the IPCC agrees. The immediate challenge is to use the solutions already available to us. This is a really great position to be in. Here's a good news item. Once we reach true net zero, the temperatures on Earth will stop going up in as little as 3 to 5 years. Now, with the Inflation Reduction Act, we have the resources to implement solutions at a faster rate. Funding from the IRA will speed the implementation of climate solutions while improving public health, addressing environmental inequity, and saving you money. It's a win-win. So, what is the Inflation Reduction Act, and why is it so important? Put simply, not to brag, but the IRA is the largest, best piece of climate legislation that any country has ever passed in history. So that's a hopeful sign. It is the largest investment in clean energy that America has ever made. And much of that investment is coming directly to you. This act allocates almost $370 billion, according to the official estimate, to climate solutions and energy security. And it comes largely in the form of tax credits that don't have a limit on how many of them can be used. So many experts believe that the investment is going to be even much larger than that $370 billion. Here are some projected economic benefits of the IRA. The average household in the US will get an enormous amount of savings, between $1,100 and $1,800 per year on average, by the time all of the benefits kick in. 9 million new jobs can be produced over the next decade. And by the end of this decade, at least 4% reduction in national energy expenditures. The law is deflationary. The solutions to the climate crisis create jobs, save individuals money, reduce inflation, clean up the environment, and improve our health. What's not to like? So, how can you be part of the solutions? You can start where you live. Literally, where you live. Buildings account for more than 30% of the energy-related CO2 emissions in the US. Buildings like the one you live in. The IRA is full of benefits and incentives for individuals and businesses to decarbonize homes and facilities, dramatically reducing building emissions. So, what is building decarbonization? A new word that's used a lot. It is the process of replacing or upgrading a building's structure, systems, and appliances in order to lower its greenhouse gas emissions. The reductions come from a mix of things: energy efficiency, lower demand for energy, fewer and better materials, and the potential for generation of clean energy from the building itself. So, what are the benefits if we decarbonize? First of all, we reduce a big source of air pollution, and we sharply reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. It's one of the most effective ways to help mitigate climate change. There are cost benefits. Those are always appealing. Electric appliances have a much lower lifetime cost of operation and a lower cost of ownership than fossil fuel-based alternatives. The energy efficiency measures can save an average household about 25% on energy costs. And distributed energy sources, a phrase that is often used for describing rooftop solar, can bring significant savings over the course of the system. The rebates and the tax credits in this law make all of these upgrades far more affordable. There are benefits where environmental justice is concerned. Home environments are extremely important determinants of personal health. Low-income communities experience higher rates of asthma, especially among children, and are far more likely to suffer from the health impacts related to pollution and to the exposures to extreme heat. These incentives will have big impacts on the communities that have been unable financially to have access to make these improvements. There are many ways that you can be involved in decarbonizing, including replacing gas-fueled appliances with efficient electric alternatives, replacing older electric appliances with newer, more efficient models, switching to LED lighting, and replacing traditional HVAC systems with heat pumps and traditional water heaters with heat pump water heaters. upgrading or replacing inefficient insulation, windows, weather stripping, siding, anything that keeps your house, that keeps your home hot or cool, making sure that that's in the best possible shape. Installing rooftop solar systems and on-site battery storage. All of those are encouraged with the IRA. And supporting community solar initiatives where individual solar systems aren't a viable option. Why do we focus on electricity? When our appliances all run on electricity, the grid can be powered by any and all forms of clean and renewable energy. Wind, water, sun, tidal, algae. There are tons of ways to make electricity. And modern appliances, such as heat pumps, are much more efficient than their gas counterparts, 3 to 4 times more efficient. So when we electrify, we use less energy overall. That is the slide I thought I was going to be seeing there. So there's a little behind the scenes. Gas stoves. Gas stove pollution leaks methane into your home and has been recently linked to childhood asthma. Lawrence Berkeley Laboratories says that 12 million Californians in homes with gas stoves are breathing levels of NO2 that are illegal outdoors. So, an induction cooktop is a wonderful alternative for your home. It's fast, boiling water in less than 2 minutes, stopping boiling water as soon as you want. It's efficient. The energy is focused with hardly any wasted. Whereas cooking with gas, you have only about 30% of the energy actually heats the food. It is easy to clean, which I like as a messy cook. And your kitchen doesn't get hot in the summer. In my kitchen, my pilot light practically acts like a heater. I would love to replace it. So with an induction cooktop, there is no wasted heat warming your space. And critically, the induction does not pollute your indoor air. Heat pump, HVACs, they're 2 machines in one. They provide heating and cooling, and they do it 3 times more efficiently than traditional air conditioning and a gas furnace. And they're quiet, so I hear. I'd love to hear one. This technology has been around. Your refrigerator is a heat pump, but the technology has advanced a lot in the last decade or so and really perfected some of these utilities. A modern heat pump is incredibly efficient. They reduce electricity use for heating by half compared to other electric heating units, like a resistance heating furnace or baseboard heater. And the fact that they're 2 in 1 is a huge benefit, particularly here in the Bay Area and in California in general, where there's a growing appeal because these bigger heat waves have made a lot of us crave air conditioning who have never had air conditioning before. In fact, I admit some Californians, some of us in the Bay Area are kind of snobby about air conditioning. We've always thought the fog was enough, but now we're wanting a little something more. So these are a great solution. Heat pump water heater. Everybody loves heat pump water heaters. They are 3 times more efficient than gas. And if you want to make a big impact with one appliance, this is a great place to start. As you can see, Wei-Tai loves a heat pump water heater, and I think he's going to talk about them a little more later. One great benefit of a heat pump water heater is that you can schedule it to heat during the day when electricity is inexpensive and store that heat and energy until the time that you need it. EV, here's a big topic with an unfinished slide, but we can talk about the importance of electric vehicles and some of the benefits of and modernizations of EVs. They're getting cheaper, longer range, heavier duty. There are incentives for purchases, incentives for batteries. And the bipartisan infrastructure law has programs that are expanding our charging networks and making electric vehicle ownership just so much more practical. So as I get into a little bit of the details of the IRA, a little bit of vocabulary, things that you'll be hearing about, IRA rebates are income-based. So the larger your income, the smaller the rebate. These are geared towards providing maximum benefit to lower income people. They are administered by state agencies, state energy agencies. In California, those are administered by the California Energy Commission. They will be available late 2023 and into early early 2024, and will be available until the funds allocated for them run out. So if you are interested in pursuing rebates, you would want to be looking at those soon. Eventually, many of those will be upfront discounts at point of sale, which will be an additional benefit for people who don't have the means to put the outlay to wait for a rebate. There will be upfront discounts at point of sale through contractors and through retailers. IRA tax credits exist now, and they run through for the next 10 years. There's no national cap on how much money will be available to them for them, and they are a percentage of what you would spend on an item. There's a maximum. There's a cap for individuals or for households every year, but that cap resets. So again, as we think about planning your upgrades, you'll want to look at how to you might distribute things over a couple of years or a few years so that you can get those credits year by year. Stackable benefits is a lovely term because it refers to things where you can get a rebate and a tax credit and a potential for local and state incentives as well. Here's a little example of what rebates, some samples of the top rebates available for certain electrification items and efficiency. There are two sort of buckets for them. There's electrification appliances and efficiency measures. So I'm not going to get into detail on here, but here's a sample of some of the rebates available, and here's a sample of some of the tax credit limits. Stackable incentives, as I said, your local and state governments and even utilities are offering incentives. There is a great calculator created by an organization we will point you to called Rewiring America that includes federal, state, local, and utility incentives that are currently available. You put in your information and they will give you your personal incentive limits or availabilities, and even a list of what sorts of items are available to you. For instance, I put in a renter here instead of a homeowner, and there are items that are available for rebates that would be appropriate for renters. So that's Rewiring America, and that will be part of your resource guide. So how can you take advantage of these incredible incentives? It takes a little bit of homework, but the payoff is huge. First of all, make sure that you understand if a benefit is income dependent and which level of benefit you qualify for. Next, make sure that your purchase meets the provision of the tax credit. Some specific items have to meet efficiency standards or manufacturing standards. There are some details about specific items that qualify for rebates. Save your receipts. You have to do that for everything, right? Save your receipts. You may need that. And then you'll need to fill out the appropriate forms when you file your taxes, or fill out the appropriate forms for the energy commissions. Look out for updates in the law. These things will keep changing. You'll want to keep referring back to the guidelines. And encourage professionals that you work with who have contact with these to get updated themselves. Encourage your contractors, encourage your appliance suppliers and your tax professionals to be aware of these. It's amazing how many times we encounter people who are contractors who don't know what about these provisions, and it's really important, and it's great for their businesses. A home energy audit may be your first step on this journey. Your local utility likely offers a service at a very low price, and the IRA offers a tax credit to cover some of the cost. It's really worth getting because an audit can help you decide where to start investing in electrifying your home and choosing the tax credits and weatherization upgrades that are appropriate for you, and help scheduling. As I said, you'll want to sort of create a budgetary strategy. So many organizations have guides to help you find those benefits, and we will fill up a swell list of them here. You might add, as presenters might add a list of local benefits or some other resources for your particular audience. So what are next steps? Most of the benefits that we discussed are most easily accessible for homeowners, but many provisions are available to all. And we as an organization and Climate Reality are really working to broaden that impact. You can help by understanding the role of state and local policy and advocating for good governance in your community. New technology is emerging all the time that is even more affordable, that is portable, so renters can take advantage of some of these benefits and take their electrification with them. So what can we do? We can learn by doing, take advantage, lead by doing, learn by doing too. That's what we're doing here. Take advantage of the tax credits and incentives that are available to us and help others do the same. We can educate our communities on the IRA and how to access clean technology incentives for households, for businesses, and for organizations. And we can advocate for local policies and programs that accelerate building electrification through incentives and services and expand access. I love this quote. The choices we make this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years. We have the tools we need, and we can start acting very effectively by making the right choices. You can make great choices. You can make great choices. You can take the Climate Realities Electrification Pledge and get monthly tips, updates, strategies for accelerating your progress to a cleaner future. You can connect with others on this group, some of whom we've already met today, and share experiences, advice, challenges, conquests. And we would love it if you would join our chapter or the organization and come along with us on this journey. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I'm sure you have a ton of questions because that was not that. There are a lot of questions. Please ask them, and we can try to find answers together. If you have suggestions for additional presentations on narrower topics or suggestions of people who might want to hear this presentation, please let us know. And happy electrifying.
Great. Thank you so much, Audrey. Let's see. Why don't we take Is there one or two questions? Maybe if there is a one or two questions we can take, and then we're going to take a screen break, a 5-minute screen break.
I have a question.
Yes.
And it kind of comes from the supply side. So I know I got an induction oven. It took almost a year because of manufacturing supply being small. There are a limited number of contractors. Getting somebody to work on your house, particularly if it's not a huge project, can be a nightmare, right? And a very long project. So I'm wondering, these things that you've talked about are really more for like what the homeowner can do or business can do. What about the supply side of that?
I mean, the only thing I would say, and I'll let you think about that for a second, Audrey, is that we really need to focus on educating our heating and air folks. I mean, that is really a big barrier right now, I believe, to having this done, because people will go and they'll be wanting to replace their hot water heater, and they'll just say, oh no, just here's a gas, just go with another gas one. So this is a real big stretch, but that's part of the challenge. Audrey, do you have anything to?
Yeah. And so are there programs?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about it in terms, for the purpose of this workshop, I'm thinking about it in terms of the presentation. And so I'm sort of taking note of that as something to add in there. One of the things in the resources is helping people find contractors. And certainly I think those issues, that's something that people will want to answer. As climate reality, we cannot refer people to specific providers and contractors, but we can refer them to those lists of other organizations. So, for instance, Rewiring America has a great resource of contractors, and the Switch is on, and it's something where you also might find a local resource for that might be able to point you to some specific suppliers. It is certainly the shortage of contractors is a challenge. It's also part of the job creation of the Act, right? Is that there are great opportunities. And one of the things that we've been talking about doing with these presentations is presenting to trade organizations and to contractors to encourage them to build out that workforce.
Great. Thank you. Great answer, Audrey. Sue, I see your hand up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Audrey. That was a really great presentation. We replaced our HVAC. It was 25 years old. And so we saw these. And after the presentation from Wei-Tai in February, we decided to replace it with a heat pump. Now, our contractor was awesome. And after the IRA or the Power Up training, I was trying to give them what I could give them in instruction with the IRA, and they want more information. They are they want that capacity to be able to serve their customers, and that is a family-owned vendor. So. When do you know when that will be available for them?
I'm sorry. The ability to actually do the point of sale rebates?
No, they already know. They're aware of the rebates. They want more information about the whole electrification and the more information on how they can give their customers the rebates and such. They want more education on all of it.
Right. Well, I think that would be, I think I would love to talk more about how this presentation might be tailored for the trades, and what and to talk to people about how we might actually develop a specific presentation for the trades, because I think it's a huge need, and that'd be terrific. If you wanted to circle up about that, I would love to talk to maybe even connect with that contractor and respond to them.
Thank you. And maybe one other question. I see, Kevin, if you can have a short comment or question, that would be great.
Yeah, Audrey, this question for you. My partner and I own a 2-unit building in San Francisco that's a rental. Are there benefits for, landlords as well?
That's so interesting because that's been sort of the next question on my list, because I've been looking into benefits for renters, because so much stuff is geared towards homeowners, and I am sure there are different rules for investment properties, and I am not sure what they are, but that is definitely something that I would like to expand on, because there are incentives that apply. I'm not exactly sure how they work, and I think that would be a great thing to include, because both investment properties and second homes are a question mark for me.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. So now, everyone, thank you, Audrey. Great job. And again, this is we hope to put together a slideshow that's ready to go, ready for prime time. We're working on it, and more information to come on that in the future. So now 20 minutes after will be our resume time. So we are going to take a little break, turn your video off. Next, we have the pleasure to have Wei-Tai Kwok. He's going to be talking about strategies to personalize and present your slideshow. Wei-Tai, he is celebrating his 10th anniversary of having trained with Al Gore in Chicago in 2013. He loves presenting and has given 150 climate reality talks in the last decade. He co-founded our San Francisco Bay Area chapter in 2015, and he's a past chapter co-chair. He works in the renewable energy industry and also serves on the Lafayette City Council. He has a goal this year of giving 20 climate reality talks, and just completed number 12 this year, and focusing on heat pump water heaters this past week. So, Wei-Tai, hello, take it on.
Hi there. Okay, great. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, everybody who's given such a great run up to spending this whole morning together giving talks. As Bonnie mentioned to you, this is a really special year for me because it's my 10th anniversary of being trained as a climate reality leader. And that means that back in 2013, I flew to Chicago along with 1,200 other volunteers from all 50 states and 60 countries around the world to sit with Al Gore for 3 days to get trained to be a climate reality leader. Now, I should say to you that at that time, I was pretty depressed. I went to the training because I was depressed and hopeless that the climate crisis was not being solved as quickly as I had hoped, having seen the movie back in 2006. And so I went there in frustration to try to see what could I do that could help. And I realized that Mr. Gore, being such a fantastic speaker and trainer to train us how to talk about the climate crisis, that I wanted to be an educator and help to educate the public and get the word out about the science, the impacts, and solutions. So anyways, that was an incredible training for me to be with people young and old and of all sorts of religions. And I was really uplifted in what I learned and the tools that climate reality gave me to use these past 10 years to be an ever more effective climate communicator. Now, let me tell you that back then in 2013, we went to training to give presentations. It was called like presentation training. Now, the climate reality today has expanded to train us to be activists in many more dimensions than before. But I remember when I filled out my application to join that time, we had to commit to giving 10 presentations in our first year after getting trained. And they made you write down who were the 10, and I could only get to 4. I was thinking I'll give a presentation to my office at, brown bag lunch. I'm going to give to my college alumni community. And then I'll approach my local library, and then I'll do one of the nonprofits I was with that I could give them a talk. So I could think of 4. I could not even think of 10, right? But I went to the training anyways. And as luck would have it, I did give after I got trained, I gave my first presentation and second and third. And before I knew it, I gave 20 presentations that year. I couldn't believe it. And I learned so much on that journey that first year of struggling with my presentations and how to put them together, how to find audiences and so forth. But I want to share with you one reason why I'm here today to talk about personalizing your presentation and why your presence here today is so important to the solutions to climate change. And that is that one person after one of my presentations came up to me and said, Wei-Tai, that was fantastic. In fact, I've seen Al Gore give that presentation, and I think yours was better. And after I patted myself on the back, wow, gee, thank you, sir. After I thought about what he said to me, it was not actually that I was a better presenter than Al Gore. That's preposterous. But I think what he was saying to me was that you being the messenger, delivering the message in your personal way, was more effective to him than hearing the message from Al Gore. And that is to say, and that I think is absolutely true, that you and me and all of us here are actually more effective climate communicators to create change in our communities than can Al Gore be for us, right? And actually over the last 10 years, I think that's the absolute secret sauce, the secret of the Climate Reality Project that Mr. Gore did know when he created this, was that we and all the ground troops here are more powerful. And if we bring our personal message and tie it with the climate crisis, that's what creates change. And so that has really powered me for 10 years to get out there and speak all the time. This work of public speaking and what you're interested in doing and getting over our fears and all the challenges and reasons why we want to delay. No, we need to get out there every day and be talking about it, whether it's one-on-one or through using the PowerPoint presentation and so forth. So let me then, in that context, just switch over to what we're going to talk about, mostly about how to customize the slideshow presentation, both from a personalization point of view, as well as to tie in the IRA. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right on in. So one thing that to set the context, we're going to talk about is using Al Gore's slideshow, the Climate Reality Project slideshow, as the basis of putting together a customized presentation. So one essential thing is say, where is the slideshow in the first place? And so hopefully all of you here are members of Reality Hub, can log in successfully, go to the site for the Climate Reality Leadership Core portion. And in there's a resource section. And one of the very first resources in there is this Word document that you can download that has links to actually all the last probably 5 years worth of trainings. And the most recent training there, let's click on that Word document and look at the very first page of it. You'll see that Vice President Gore's presentations are listed here, and you can download the English version. In this case, there's the Keynote version, there's a PowerPoint version, there's even a PDF version. So that's how you actually access his latest slideshow from April and before. And for those, I also want to call out that there's something called the slide deck guide that's right underneath this. And I actually discovered this like 8 years ago. And I think this is really essential to understanding the order of the slides that he's presenting to us. So I'm going to click on this and just give you a little snippet to show you what that thing says. And it shows you how the slideshow is organized. And when you look at, this is like 454 slides in this case, but the first 16 slides are the science. The next section, the biggest section, is the impacts. And then finally, he talks about the solutions. So this is really the arc of the story, which I'll say the arc of the story we're trying to tell. And we should always have a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? An arc. Those are the best types of stories. And in his case, he's organized it to the science, the impacts, and solutions. And the way that I keep the arc of the story is I don't want to use all 454 slides. I might use just 30 or 60 or 90. I'll pick a little bit from the science. I'll pick then a couple relevant ones from the impacts, like out here in California, you can see droughts, fires, right? So I'll pick a little bit more of those. And just whatever audience I'm doing, I'll try to pick what's impactful to them. And finally, the solutions, and I'll pick the ones that are relevant. So I make sort of a subset of these slides, but I want to keep that arc of the story. Okay. Now, for those of you, hopefully you've downloaded the presentation before, but if you haven't, I do want to call your attention to how his slideshow is set up. And that is that with every slide, there's an essential notes section at the bottom there that is really important to read. And so I want to zoom in there and explain what you're going to see in the notes section. At the very top, there's some slide ID and some usage guidelines of where you can use it. And then the next section, very helpful especially for beginning presenters, is usually Vice President Gore's verbatim words that he used to present the slideshow. And since Mr. Gore is like a master of words, I actually pay very close attention to how he expresses and communicates, because he's very efficient and obviously very practiced in this. So I really try to look at the way he uses his words, or even you can try to read them verbatim in the beginnings. And at the bottom, there's a slide source I always click on this because you can read the background of where the information in the slide came from. And a lot of times, if your audience is going to ask you a question, you want to be able to answer like the question. And so this is like one of the presenter's greatest fears, is that you're going to get stumped if somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to. So I always go click here to get prepared for those. So again, all of that's at the bottom of every single slide of the slideshow. All right. Now, another question a lot of people ask is, how many slides should I present? Now, I've never had like 2.5 hours or 3 hours to present the entire 400 slides of Mr. Gore's show. Mostly, I'll have an hour to present. That's a very typical time slot for a presenter. And so usually I'll then think, okay, I want to present for about 45 minutes, starting off with my personal story that many of you practiced today, 2 minutes or 3 minutes right up front, and then 42 minutes of presenting, but then leave at least 15 minutes for question and answers. So if you got 45 minutes to talk, here's how I typically budget for myself how many slides I should use. I pick about 90 slides, so that's 2 slides per minute. It'd be my personal pace. Mr. Gore goes even faster at 3 or 4 slides a minute. Some people prefer 1 slide a minute, and then you go to 45. But you pick your own number. I'm just giving you this as my example of what I do when I plan my presentations. Now, I don't always get an hour to speak. Sometimes I get less. And so I might have to do a 30-minute presentation. I might have to do a 20-minute presentation, which is very typical for a Rotary Club presentation where they give you exactly 25 minutes. And so these are some ways that I pare down my slides. Now, I told you in my first year, I gave 20 presentations, and I made mistakes that year. One of the mistakes was giving very long presentations. Like my very first couple were over 120 slides. And I realized after doing that a couple of times, like people's eyes are glazing over. They're sort of interested, but they're being polite at a certain point. And I realized like, okay, we're taking all the energy out of the room here. I don't need to be talking for an hour. So I pretty much try to keep myself in the 60 to 90 range, talk for about 30 to 45 minutes and limit it to that. Okay, now here's an example of using multimedia in presentations, and there's a lot of great ones in the Climate Reality Project deck. And so I like to put them in there as a treat for the audience, because, and like in this case, you could see probably 80 or 90 slides, and there are 10 videos in there. So maybe at least one out of every 10 slides or one out of every 8 slides. Now you want to try to put some of those in there as a treat to your audience, and not just keep it all static for the whole part of your presentation. Another question people ask me is it okay to add your own slides? And of course, by virtue of this whole presentation, we're talking about personalizing and customizing your presentation. So the answer is definitively yes. You should feel free to make a PowerPoint presentation that has a mixture of your slides and the Climate Reality Project slides. I've found in talking to other leaders, climate leaders, that 20 to 80% of all slides get personalized. And it's a wide range amongst presenters. For me personally, I do tend to use 80% of the climate reality slides and then use 20% of my slides. But I might, if we have time, I'll show you an example where I did totally the opposite also. So do whatever you want. Use the climate reality slides how you feel fit. And let me give you a couple examples of the slides that I use and I've seen other climate leaders use very effectively. And the number one thing I see people using, and I recommend, is to show pictures of your family, if that is a motivating reason of why you asked. I just got out of one of the breakouts with Fred Bialy just now sharing his personal story, and he mentioned his grandchildren are his leading reason to take action. And the Montessori school teacher who's here talk about the students. Those are really heartfelt. Go to that heartfelt reason and share a picture. In this case, my 6-year-old son Gareth and my daughter 9 years old. When I saw the inconvenient truth, and I realized it was going to be too late for them to solve this problem, and I had to be a part of the solution. Another day that many of us remember, 9/9/2020, September 9th, 2020, when the sky was red outside. I ran outside. My wife was saying, "What's going on?" And I took this picture of that morning of the impacts of the climate change, and personally how it affected me. And I use this slide. It's a funny one, but it is a way of getting the point across that the climate crisis has arrived to the Bay Area. Another way I personalized my presentation is talking about changes that I've made in my lifestyle, ways that I've challenged myself to eat less meat, for example, and to eat more plant-based diet. And so I love the fact that the Impossible Burger came out a couple of years ago. And so, I just, for fun, took some pictures of me going to try the first time Impossible meat at the Burger King. And sometimes you could think, okay, this is a little corny, but think about when you're presenting what you could do to catch your audience attention, give them a chuckle, which is a sense of, again, a little bit of serious and a little bit of levity and a little bit of seriousness. I always say how, I liked it so much I took my parents out to try plant-based meat and they both liked it too. So, it's not as bad as you think. So think about what an image can do 1,000 words. And I like to use images, and I always carry my phone around and try to think of what's a great image for my next presentation. So those are a couple slides about personalizing the slideshow, but we're now on a mission this year to tie in the IRA and building electrification into our presentation so that we can practically help our audiences move from acts to action, to take action on climate. And so I want to share with you a couple things I've been doing recently to adjust my presentations and PowerPoints to talk about the IRA. For me, in my case, I happen to have started a building electrification retrofit of my own home back in 2019. And I took a lot of pictures of myself doing that. So these are pictures of the retrofit of the heat pump water heater, electric fireplace, HVAC, induction cooking, and what have you. And I want to encourage you, wherever you are in your journey, to take pictures before, during, and after what you're doing, because these can be very effective for your presentations. And it doesn't matter whether you're just starting the process and researching it. Well, then take pictures of you reading books to research, or going to Friedman's Appliances, looking at a new cooktop, or take a picture of you looking at your gas cooktop. There's always something to do the before, during, and after. Okay, so I share a couple things that I did. Okay, this is the during. That's me up on my roof installing my last solar panel back in 2012. And that was the Nissan Leaf that I bought back in 2012. So I often share these pictures, but now I tie in those pictures with what the relevance is for today's buyers. And now that the IRA has passed. So today's people going solar can get a 30% off from the solar tax credit. Buyers of electric vehicles, $7,500 off for new, and a new measure of $4,000 off for used. That's something totally new.
The final attic, after it's been insulated with cellulosic insulation.
That's my attic.
They shredded.
So I took a video. You can take a video. It doesn't have to be a static photo.
16 to 18 inches.
And so I often show this video of doing attic insulation. And then I've added a little kicker here to just say, now with the IRA, you get up to a 30% tax credit on the material cost, limit $1,200 per year. So this is, again, a way that I've shared my personal with tying it into the IRA. I show examples of my heat pump ductless mini split. So this is what the outsides look like, the mini splits on the inside. And then I say, you get 30% tax credit up to $2,000 a year. These were what Audrey was sharing the numbers with you, but you can just go ahead and insert them with your pictures. And remember, I talked about taking pictures before. That's my house on the left before, during, while they were installing the heat pump, and then after, because this is educational. People want to know what they're getting into. And that, if we switch over and say, what about inside? I took my old gas cooktop. I did this one myself with a buddy. We pulled it out, wired it up, and put in the new induction electric one. So just a couple ways to talk about it. And again, boom, $840 rebate if you're income qualified, right? So using the opportunity to educate on these matters. Now, we don't always have to use pictures or videos. Sometimes I use graphs and images. And so it turns out that, remember, I told you in 2019, I did this home upgrade. And after living in an all electric home for 1 year, I got 5 years of my PG&E bills, and I calculated whether or not I had saved any money. And the good news was that in 2020, the all electric home cost less to run in energy than before, when it was a mixed fuel gas plus electric. Clearly, my electric bill was much bigger than ever before, but my gas bill had gone to zero. And so all in all, I was a winner there. What are other things we can do to make, to showcase what we're doing, right, personally in our lives? Somebody approached me and said, hey, Wei-Tai, can you make a video about, cooking on a wok? A lot of Asians think that we shouldn't go on induction electric because we don't know how to cook on a wok. And so this Asian group said, could you make a video on wok cooking? I thought, okay. And by the way, I always say yes. Whenever somebody asks me to do something, even if I don't know how to do it or I don't know if I have time, I just say yes. And then I try to figure out later how to do it. And I just think that's a strategy of getting me to take action rather than think about things too much. Just say yes is my motto. But anyways, if you want, here's the video, just a 60-second video. Let's see if hopefully this will play.
Just listen to that sizzle.
Hi, I'm Wei-Tai.
And I'm Violet.
Welcome to our kitchen.
We want to share our experiences cooking Chinese food on our new induction electric cooktop. We used to have a gas cooktop, but when we learned that induction cooking was cleaner, better performing, less polluting, and safer for our health, we were sold. But we had some hesitations. Would induction be easy to learn? Would it take longer to cook on? Would it work for our favorite meals like stir fry? It turns out it did. The great news is that we can use a flat bottom wok, and it works quite well to stir fry vegetables like green peppers, cabbage, gyoza, fried rice, 好吃. Plus, it's also so easy to clean up. Just wipe it up. We love our induction cooktop. Try one, and we hope you'll love it too.
You like that? You see I snuck in a video to give you a treat, catch your attention? All right, so let's summarize what we learned today, or my section at least. And that is that as a framework, I like to use the climate reality slides to paint the arc of the story that we're trying to paint. And remember, it's the science, the impacts, and the solutions that we're here to talk about. And what I talked to you about before is that under the impacts, share how you've been impacted. Remember that picture of me with a 9/9/2020 in the wildfires? Just try to think about, drought in your backyard or whatever. And then on the solution side, share solutions that you've discovered wherever you are in that process. If you already have a solar panel or you're researching, it doesn't matter. Just share wherever you're at. It's worth sharing and bringing others along. Everybody here is working on something, and you'll be surprised to know how interesting what you're doing is. And then, in addition to that personalization of the slideshow, think about ways to integrate Climate Reality's new strategy this year in 2023 of acts to action. We're here to demystify the IRA, which is complicated. And so the work we put into it as leading the way and learning about it, that is going to help our neighbors to make change as well. So wherever you are in your action plan, don't have to wait until you're done. That's okay. Just communicate it. And so I'll just close by saying that many of you here may think, like I did, like, gosh, I'm not ready to give talks. I'm not an expert. This is so complicated. Climate change is complicated. The IRA is complicated. How could I possibly go out there in 2 weeks and give a presentation? But the answer is actually quite a motivation from this Nigerian poet, Ijeoma Umabinyo. And she said, start now, start where you are. Start with fear, start with pain, start with doubt, start with hands shaking, start with voice trembling, but start. Start and don't stop. Start where you are with what you have. Just start. And I think that's such a beautiful way to apply to what we're doing as climate leaders and presenters, to just get out there and do it, because, you'll find, like me, that it's just so fun and wonderful and rewarding. Your audiences will reward you. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be out there. And so with that, I want to thank you. And hopefully we have a couple of minutes there to take some questions.
Wow, Wei-Tai, that was so inspirational and heartwarming, and actually is kind of choking me up in this moment, but so wonderful. Thank you so much. Please, we'll take a couple of questions or comments. We're a little bit short on time, just to keep that in mind, but anyone other than how wonderful that was? I see Mary Lou's hand up.
Wei-Tai, I loved your presentation. I'm wondering, have you ever received the question, that moral dilemma question of electrification vehicles, rare earth metals, and then we look at, like Democratic Republic of Congo, which is creating a horrific modern day slavery situation over there because of the rare earths. And I'm wondering if you've encountered that before, and how do we answer that?
Well, let me step back and just say, how do we answer difficult questions? Because rather than diving into that specific one, because if we research all of them, you'll find that they're very good answers, and many of these have been asked and answered, and they're always good ways to explain the conflict materials that you're talking about, compared to all the pollution that, and this is just one of the typical playbook of deniers of trying to divert attention to something else, right? So you can sometimes talk about that. But I think in general, if you don't know the answer, it's totally okay in your presentation to say, I'm sorry, I don't know about everything on the climate crisis. I'm very interested in everything. That's something that I am not able to answer to you today, but I'll take a note to answer. And if I can contact you afterwards, you can offer to contact them after that and not have to deal with it in the session. I think that would be, but to be upfront about, like, you don't have to know everything. People are not expecting us to know everything about everything. Okay? Jojo.
Great. Yeah, Jojo. Last question.
Hi. I live in a university housing building, specifically the Jesuit School of Theology in Berkeley, and I would need help to convince the Jesuits here to really shift into electrification, because right now I have this gas range. Whenever I turn it on, I could smell the toxicity of the gas, but I have been trying to complain to the management, the housing management, but they still said, no, we only use gas. And even my heater is also fueled by gas. So I would need your help, Wei-Tai, or the person who was like an artist here in Berkeley, to convince the Santa Clara University, specifically the Jesuit School of Theology, to really shift into electrification. So Yeah, as soon as possible, if you could let me know when you are available to convince these people, the Jesuits in particular, to really shift into electrification. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And what's wonderful is we have 50 people here, not just one, to help you. And look at how important our voices are to educate. It's education, 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 and just chipping away at teaching whatever environment you're in. We're not going to get a quick win per se. But I think if we educate on all the aspects here, we will win over time. And your effort, your personal effort, you'll be more powerful than I will with your audience. That was the message I want everybody to hear. You don't have to go to somebody else. You have a lot more power than you imagine. And you can start small with your story and research, but just start somewhere. So thank you again. I'll be here for afterwards. We can continue on, and I'll put my email in the chat as well. So if anybody want to contact me later, but why don't we keep moving forward so that we can stay roughly on schedule. Thank you, Bonnie and Audrey.
Thank you again, Wei-Tai. And I hopefully Wei-Tai will hang out for
Absolutely, I'll be here.
The program. So if folks have questions at the end, we can go.
Yep.
And I just want to mention, JoJo, it's always nice to find a buddy, a partner to do those kind of things with if you don't feel comfortable starting out on your own. And then also, you can buy a 2-burner induction cooktop for about $100. So you could get started small. It doesn't really transition your whole stove, but you can start with incremental change. Okay, well, I want to move on to Gary. Audrey, did you have something or your hand?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment that the presentation that I put together that's focused on the IRA will be available to all for distribution shortly. And good luck making it as charming and personal as Wei-Tai did his. I would love to see that spiced up with all of your stories.
Thank you, Audrey. Now let's move on to our past presentations chair extraordinaire, Gary White. He is going to talk to us about finding opportunities to speak. Gary is he resides in Belmont, California. He trained in Toronto in 2015, and he's retired from Silicon Valley. He now spends his time as a climate activist and digital artist. Gary, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see. It's wonderful to be on this call. I am so glad so many people decided to take their morning on a Saturday to participate, and it's really good for me to see a lot of old friends and climate activists on this call. And I'm excited also to follow Wei-Tai. Wei and I go back about 8 years since I was trained. And I helped him and Steve Richard and a few other people get our chapter off the ground. And as Bonnie mentioned, I'd been presentation chair for a number of years, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So finding opportunities to present. Okay, the first thing to do in terms of getting started, and by the way, this is how I approach it. There are many ways to approach finding presentation opportunities and gigs, but this has worked for me. I've done actually over 300 presentations to about 20,000 people over the past 8 years. And so this has been tried and tested by me, but it may change for you. First and foremost, determine how much time and energy you have. None of us are being paid for doing this work. We're not doing it full time. We're not doing it professionally. So you've got to figure out how to fit it in, how to shoehorn it in to all of your active life activities. The second thing is figuring out your target radius. Now, this is when you give an in-person presentation and you've got to travel to a particular site. I've decided that in my case, I live in Belmont, which is in San Mateo. I would focus primarily on San Mateo County. Now, once in a while, I might go down to San Jose or San Francisco if I get a call to come out to an organization there, but primarily I'm going to focus on San Mateo. The next thing that's really important is to network.
Oh, Gary, could I interrupt you and just say your slides are still on slide 1? We don't actually see your slideshow playing.
Oh, really?
And I think you're, yeah.
Do you see any change now?
No.
Okay.
No, we've been having some technical issues all kind of this morning, so you might want to just do them manually one by one, but you can try the slideshow if you want.
How about can you see getting started now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll do it this way. Okay, so as I was saying, the next thing is to network in terms of doing research on targeted groups. What do I mean by that? Well, there are so many different organizations and so many kinds of groups out there that you might want to present to. But my recommendation would be to get started with one particular type of organization. Let's say it's schools. I've given lots of presentations to high schools. So I might think about what are some of the local high schools here in the Belmont, San Mateo area, and I'll identify them and I will look online for information about some specific targeted groups. The next thing I'll do is really adjust my slideshow, and this is something Wei-Tai mentioned, to match the time frame available. Like Wei-Tai, I will often get requests for different length slideshows, and you've got to really adjust accordingly. The last thing I would say in terms of getting started, please become really familiar with the content of your slideshow. The last thing people want you to do is to show up and to simply read the slide as the content. People can read it themselves. What you want to do is give color commentary, and you want to provide some stories as well. Okay, you see the next slide, getting started, number 6. Okay. Give your first presentation, in my recommendation, to a safe, supportive, friendly audience. And that typically will be friends and family at home. It could be teammates. It could be other people that you might do it on Zoom. But do it to a supportive organization or group. My recommendation to do presentations is to simply use Al Gore's Truth in 10 slide deck, as opposed to going to one of his more lengthy slideshows, as Wei-Tai was mentioning. Truth in 10 is under 100 slides. It's easier to work with and deal with, but that really is up to you. Now, in this age of Zoom and online presenting, you'll need to determine if the presentation is going to be in person or online. For the past 3 years, almost all of my talks have been online on Zoom and other online applications. But now, since things are opening up, I'm going back and talking to people online. And number 10, and finally, and I think this is really important for those just getting started, be sure to get feedback from your audience on content, delivery, pacing, etc. after your talk, especially a friendly group that will give you honest and supportive feedback. That is very, very important to get going. Now, in terms of finding opportunities or gigs, as I call them, the most important thing to do is to network, which is fairly obvious. And so what I did is I went through all of my cell phone contacts. I looked at numbers of people that I could contact to find out if they were in groups or if they had organizations where they'd like me to present. I also used family members and their contacts to do the same thing, sort of spreading the word. I even checked with neighbors and certainly friends to find their contacts. And I also inquired at my workplace, at my church, at friends' schools, clubs, etc. I just sort of opened it up to as many potential clients and contacts as I could around San Mateo. And I also checked in with other climate reality leaders for help to see how they've been contacting and networking for gigs as well. So how about researching targeted organizations? Now, I mentioned it's best to identify the type of organization you would want to work with, and then drill down and find out the organization itself. And so I would initially focus on one type, as I mentioned, a local church in this case. Go to the organization's website. Let's say it's a church in San Mateo. I would go through their website. I would find the leader, could be a senior pastor, could be administrator, could be an office manager. Try to identify a web address that would be on their website. And then I would personalize an email to that person to be able to present myself and my request to do a presentation with them. And I would repeat that with additional targeted audiences and organizations and leaders of those groups. And how would I do that? Well, what I would do is use an email template. And this is the oldest approach, in effect, that you could use to try to identify leads. It's in effect cold calling, but instead it's cold emailing. I would start with a template that I'll show you in a moment. I would address the email to the leader. You'd state your purpose, summarize your presentation, describe your work, a little bit about your background. Be sure to ask for a return email or call and follow up if you don't get a response. And believe it or not, with this approach, I've gotten huge numbers of requests to talk with these people, to present my ideas, to come to the organization, and to arrange a slideshow. And so here's an email example. I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but I'll read a portion of it. Principal Smith, I would like to offer my services in giving a free slide presentation on the climate crisis, in this case at Galileo High School in San Francisco. I am a locally based climate activist, personally trained by former Vice President Al Gore. That part is really important. That opens tremendous doors, as you might imagine, and his Climate Reality Project. As a climate leader, I educate people, especially students, on the climate crisis and attempt to motivate them to take climate action. The slide materials I used are abbreviated and up-to-date version of the now famous slideshow. And you could see the rest of it as well. I talk a little bit about my background prior to becoming active in the movement. I worked as an HR and corporate social responsibility executive for 30 years in high tech. And I look forward to hearing from you and discussing my offer. And as I said, believe it or not, I get back incredible responses on emails, even if it's for an acknowledgement and saying, thanks for letting us know we're not interested at this point. We might be later on. Or, thank you. This looks great. This is a topic that we've been looking to bring somebody in to present to our school and our students or my class. Let's talk about what you do and when we could do it. Now, once you've identified a group, an organization in a particular sector, you really need to have a discussion with the group leader. Now, you've identified the organization, you've gone to their website, you've found who likely will be the decision maker and the group leader. What you would then need to do is schedule a date and time to talk with that person, either on the phone or in person. Most of the time, I try to do it on the phone. It's more effective time-wise, but sometimes the principal or the organization president, let's say, will want to see you in person, which is fine. Call or arrive on time. That's important. You want to come across in a very, very professional way. This is a very important topic to you, and you want to treat it as such for your audience. Tell the group leader more about the presentation. Expand on the email that you provided and build some rapport with the group leader. Tell them more about yourself, your concerns. Now, the next, see if they want you to focus on a specific topic. This comes up often, and if they don't bring it up, I'd recommend that you do so. In other words, let's say you're sitting with a principal at a high school. I might say, is there any particular subtopic within climate change and the climate movement that you'd like me to address? For instance, you might be at this particular point in the semester in your science classes dealing with extinction. Well, if that's an important area, I could build that out in my presentation to add more color commentary and more information for your group. I also try to find out about the level of knowledge of the audience. Is this a very, very new audience to climate change? Is it, if you're, say, presenting to Rotary groups or other groups, how will they respond? How will they react? Just to be able to get an idea of the level of information to provide. And then, of course, with the group leaders, schedule the presentation. Now, Wei-Tai touched upon this. I want to add a little bit to what he said. We know now that we can customize slides. Wei-Tai mentioned how many people are doing this, how many presenters. I certainly have done it. After doing probably about 10 presentations using exclusively Mr. Gore's material, I started experimenting, adding my own slides, adding some commentary on his slides. But to do this, you're going to need to be a seasoned user of PowerPoint or Keynote, or find somebody that you can partner with who does just that. And that could be me. If you're interested in my help, I'd be happy to help. I happen to use Microsoft Bing to search on a topic, to grab either an article or a photo or a graphic, save it, put it on your computer so you can drop it into your presentation. Make sure that this custom slide content is accurate. The last thing you want to do is mislead people that you're presenting to and provide wrong information. And because there's so much complexity to this topic, that's easy to do. So do your research to make sure the content that you're providing is accurate. And lastly, be sure to add attribution of the content of the slide. What does that mean? It means identify the source of the material, unless it's yours that you're creating on your own. But you really need to recognize the people who had put this together. And here's a custom slide example that I've used. This is carbon emissions from wildfire. I went on the web, went to Bing, identified, this happened to be the Santa Barbara fire in 2020. This is a really, I think, powerful photo from a satellite of the smoke that's coming out of the fire. And then I would add some commentary on the side. Fire emissions account for 20% of global carbon emissions, et cetera. And on the very bottom, if you could tell, I say that this slide, where it's from, it's a NASA photo. And I put down that I've created the slide, but the photo was by NASA. So be sure to do that if you're doing custom slides. Excuse me. And if you're interested in custom slides, but maybe don't have the time or the knowledge to be able to do it on your own, please go to the custom presentation library that I helped set up with my former co-chair, Jim Leach. It provides ready-made custom slides that many of us, myself, Wei-Tai, Steve Richard, Jim, et cetera, others have already created that you could take, use as is, or additionally customize to fit your needs. You can use these. They're free to use. And as I say, use them any way that you can. And to find them, go to the climaterealitybayarea.org website, scroll down on the homepage, click on Chapter Member Resource Library, and type in Lead on Climate ! And look for the library of presentations. And please, if you do this, and if you create your own custom slide, please add it to the library or contact the leadership team to help you with that. And the other thing that I often do, most people do as well presenting, is use handouts. And handouts can serve a number of purposes. One, it could provide additional information that you don't have time to go over, or it could provide an opportunity to do a little exercise with the group. The one on the left-hand side is something I've created over the years, 50 things you can do to fight climate change. And I like to use this with all audiences, but especially with high school students, because I've got all of the 50 things divided into a number of different categories: home and garden, energy, etc. And on the right, the columns are doing and will do. And what I do is I ask the audience to go through this list quickly, read it quietly, and put a check mark next to each item they're already doing in their lives or the lives of their families at home. And I give them a chance to share that with each other and the class, give them a pat on the back. And then I said, okay, now what I want you to do in the next minute or two, go back through this list and put down at least one check mark on one item that you will do in the coming year that you can add to the exercise of identifying things you can do to fight climate change. And it might be something in the energy area. It might be something around gardening. It could be home and garden, whatever it might be. But I find that having people go through this exercise and identifying something in addition to what they're already doing really helps them solidify their commitment. Now, I want to go through quickly tips for presenting online at Zoom. I'm sure a number of people already know this, but this could be really, really helpful just to give you a little bit more information and confidence to present on Zoom around scheduling, inviting participants, running the Zoom call, video and audio, and recruiting a Zoom helper. That's really important. So scheduling a Zoom meeting, fairly easy. You go to the home screen, you go here, you hit schedule, you hit schedule here, and it will take you to the form that you would fill out where you set the topic, date, and time. You have the meeting ID, password you can add if you want. You certainly want to turn on the video and the participant item on. You also want to do the same for the audio and then add it to your calendar. And also then inviting on Zoom to create an email that you could send to your invitees. Go to the meetings tab, select copy invitation. That'll generate an email format for you. You could add or delete and then add names of the people that you'd like to invite to your talk. Zoom account options, you probably are aware of this. There is a free account option for 40 minutes of time for up to 3 people. That's a good thing to do to practice if you want to practice on Zoom. But if you want to do something a little bit more elaborate, and if you're going to be doing this regularly and hosting Zoom, you're going to need a paid account, which provides for unlimited time, up to 100 people or more if you buy up. It's about $15 per month, and you could use it in a variety of ways if you decide to go that option. Running Zoom, as we're doing right here, is fairly straightforward, but you're going to need a little bit of guidance and experience to do it. You can see here on the page that we've been looking at, participant view, audio, video on, sharing screen that I'm doing right now to run your slideshow, the chat room, recording the talk. Just become familiar with all the functions of Zoom if you're going to be doing a Zoom talk. For video tips, consider this really your presentation studio. And you want to make sure that the lighting is good, usually direct lighting instead of backlighting, so you're in the light. Clean your lens. Look at the camera as much as you can, even if you have slides and commentary or scripts that you want to read or look at. Position the computer at eye level and try to maintain eye contact with the camera. Be well groomed. Eliminate distractions. Try to do it maybe in a private room. Maybe turn down televisions or put the pet outside or whatever it might be. And place the computer on a stable surface, especially if it's a laptop, so it doesn't wobble or potentially fall off its table. Audio tips, similarly, one thing you want to do is to get a higher quality mic, if possible. Boom or even AirPods can be really helpful. Room acoustics are really important. As I mentioned, silence noisemakers and prevent feedback with only one device connected within close proximity so you don't get reverb. And probably the most importantly, recruit a Zoom helper. This would be a production assistant, in effect, who would admit participants, who could monitor the chat as it's coming in, so you don't have to do that while facilitating or giving your call. Helping with the Q&A toward the end, this person can help select the Q&A or guide you to a particular question that summarizes maybe what a lot of people are thinking. To mute and manage participants, record attendees, and most importantly, take over in case your internet connection fails, so you're not stranded and have to do things totally on your own. Now, finally, I like to present this piece of information to my audience who are learning this technique. 3 golden rules, and they're very, very simple, but they're very powerful. Number 1, less is more. The idea is focus on the content and do the least amount of talking. Sometimes all you would need to do is show the slide. It could be the slide of a major flood in Southeast Asia. Not too much you need to say about that. Let the pictures do the talking. Keep it personal. We've been talking about that for a while now during this call. Your personal story can be the backdrop for the entire talk. Weave your story and experiences through the presentation, and some short, genuine snippets can be really helpful. And then last but not least, variety. And this was pointed out by Wei-Tai as well earlier, but pick a slide per section to delve in a little bit more, one that you're really passionate about. Use a little humor here, and that's a nice touch as well. And of course, be yourself. And with that, I want to thank you.
Is there, do we have maybe a question? Oh, Audrey, yes, I see your hand up.
Hi, thanks, Gary. It's always great to hear from you. I wanted to circle back just a little bit and maybe get your help on brainstorming some ideas about that are specific to presenting the IRA to audiences, and a few things that I was thinking about. Of course, people who are local to you, people who may have similar circumstances to you, like your neighbors, and even reaching out through local groups like next door for maybe groups that would want to have presentations. I was thinking about talking to your contractors, both for presenting to other contractors. It's something that came up after my presentation. We were talking about how much education needs to happen with those folks, but they also might be gateways to other clients. Like I was thinking maybe a landscaper or an architect or a contractor might want to put together a bunch of their clients and have a party, have some event that brought together people that had something in common. Or as I know many of you guys have done, doing a house tour, combining something with a house tour and inviting people over to see to meet your heat pump water heater, and doing a presentation in combination with that. That was my little brain dump, but what sort of things come to mind for you with that specific project?
Yeah, well, Audrey, I think all of those ideas are wonderful. They're creative. They're a way of even more personalizing the material that you're working with and the project that you're doing. The mantra for me is more is better. So the more groups that you can bring in, personalize or specialize would be great. I think with a topic like the IRA, it's a little bit more complex and has sort of subtopics to it, getting unique audience groups together of people that might want to do something similar would be really an ideal way. I don't really have much more to offer, but I would really encourage people to follow your lead and do the very same thing.
Great. Thanks again, Gary. That was wonderful. And now for folks, another screen break. Let's plan on being back at all right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be talking about effective climate conversations. And because I was having technical issues earlier running my slideshow, I don't want to chance that again. So I'm going to move right into I'm going to do it in this format if I hopefully it's not too distracting. First of all, I want to talk about the global warming 6 Americas. And perhaps you have heard about this, but there's 6 Americas out there. There are the climate alarmed, climate concerned, climate cautious, climate disengaged, climate doubtful, and climate dismissive. Luckily, most folks, about 70% of folks, are at least cautious but concerned and alarmed. So the majority of people are aware of climate and have some level of concern. About the other 25%, they're just unengaged with the whole issue, or even skeptical. So the big question is, so in our conversations about climate, do we just add more fuel, talking about how the problem, or do we look at what's causing people not to take action on climate? Or in other words, do we remove the friction? So what if instead of adding fuel, we did remove the friction? How effective would that be? This is from the book, What We Think About When We Try Not to Think About Global Warming by Per Espen Stoknes. He's got a great TED Talk on apocalypse fatigue, which addresses this very well. But in essence, distance. So with distance, the climate issue remains remote for the majority of us. We can't see climate change. Melting glaciers are far away, as are sea level rise and other climate disruptions. Of course, in California, we see wildfires. I mean, it's pretty right in our face. And on the East Coast, they saw it right in their face too, with the Canadian fires, where they experienced the smoke that we've been experiencing over the last almost decade, I would say. It may hit foreign others, but not me or my kin. So, and the heaviest impacts seem far off in time as well, in the coming century or farther. So not really today, but somewhere in the future. And despite that we know global warming is here and now, for most of us, it still feels distant from everyday concerns. With doom, when climate change is framed as an encroaching disaster, it creates a wish to avoid the topic. Helplessness grows and the fear message backfires. With dissidence, if what we know conflicts with what we do, the dissonance sets in. Lack of convenient behaviors and social support weaken climate attitudes over time. Actual behavior and social relations determine the attitude in the long run. With denial, when we negate, ignore, or otherwise avoid acknowledging facts about climate change, we find refuge from fear and guilt. Denial is based in self-defense, not in ignorance or intelligence or lack of information. And with identity, we filter news through our professional and cultural identity. We look for information that confirms our existing values and notions and filter away what challenges them. Cultural identity overrides the facts. So these 5 barriers block the climate message. The anti-climate movement has been successful in triggering each of these barriers in its battle against climate science. Not linking risks to opportunities for action backfires when it relies on bad storytelling and when it provokes self-protective and cultural cognition by unnecessary polarization. However, it's not about attacking habitual defense head on, but instead it's about looking for opportunities to do something else. People have to want to live in a climate-friendly society because they see it as better, not because they get scared into it. So if it doesn't work, do something else. Research has shown that people change climate-associated behavior because of social norms. In other words, because their neighbors do it, not necessarily because it's better for the earth, for the sake of future generations, or because it saves money. We need to make climate communication social, interactive, as local as possible, and we need to make it fun and interesting. So let's talk about, let's see if I can move my slides. See, I've got, here we go, here we go, yay. So from barriers to solutions. So let's upend the barriers. Let's make the issue feel more near, more human, personal, and urgent. Let's use supportive framings that do not backfire by creating negative feelings, and let's reduce dissonance, provide opportunities for consistent, visible action, and let's avoid triggering the emotional need for denial and reduce cultural and political polarization on the issue. Let's stick with positive strategies, act as social citizens and not as individuals. So for our strategies, let's use the power of social networks. Let's employ frames that support the message with positive emotions. Let's make climate-friendly behaviors easy and convenient and make it simple to make the right choice. What we choose to purchase depends not only on price and technical information, but even more on how the choice is presented. There is a huge potential in making the right choice the default option. The long-term value of engaging people at the personal level is that it builds public support. In the absence of political leadership, each person and each choice becomes more important. So we get a critical mass. The more individuals involved, the more critical mass that we attain that's necessary for change. Use the power of stories to create meaning and community. Use indicators for feedback on societal response. For example, the IRA is a new signal of progress. So let's see if they'll move. There we go. With climate frames like these, like disaster and destruction, who needs enemies? But the good news is that the same factors that lead us to make a mindless, polluting choice can often be reversed to help us make a mindless, better choice. Okay, so reframing those climate messages from costs to insurance. How do we insure ourselves today against future further climate disruptions tomorrow? From destruction to health and heart. What's good for the body, what's good for the climate is good for the body. Drawing awareness to human health impacts seems to be an effective message for elevating public concern, at least here in the United States. From uncertainty to preparedness and ethics, getting ready is prudent and common sense, while inaction is reckless, unethical, and irresponsible. Proactive preparedness is needed. From sacrifice to opportunity, This opportunity frame emphasizes that buildings, companies, cities, and societies with low emissions are more efficient and competitive, while also providing better jobs. This economic development frame in favor of action recasts climate change as an opportunity to grow the economy in a new, smarter direction. And we're in it for the long haul. All the above supportive frames are about people and their lives, lungs, safety, values, and not least local job opportunities. This moves climate away from being a separate, low priority issue and integrates it into the top policy concerns of citizens, such as economy, jobs, and healthcare. When communicating climate, we should never accept the backfiring frames of doom, uncertainty, cost, and sacrifice. That just activates those negative frames, thereby strengthening them in the audience's mind. Always go to the offense with your framing, never defense. In communicating climate change, we want to train, repeat, and shift the balance toward the supporting frames. In other words, more commercial and political action is needed right away to ensure safety for society, secure our health, be prepared for what comes, and realize the amazing job opportunities. Also, the long-term climate issues need a much stronger communication system. Framing is about much more than language. It is about institutionalizing these frames in regulations, laws, market design, and so forth. It's so critical to build support of long-term climate frames. So let's use positive framing: insurance against risk, health and well-being, preparedness and resilience, values and a common cause, and opportunity for innovation and job growth. And so let's tell better climate stories. Let's avoid the apocalypse narrative. Instead, tell stories about green growth, stewardship and ethics, happiness and the good life, rewilding, and ecological restoration. When telling stories, make them personal and concrete, vivid and extraordinary. In other words, really the colors, the texture, make them vivid, and show, don't tell, make them visual, and humorous and witty with a strong plot and drama. Now, when you're facing challenging conversations, remember, we're all in this together, whether we realize it or not. And then also, I believe it was Wei-Tai said, you don't have to be an expert. If you don't know something, you can ask somebody you can tell someone you'll get back to them. And always ask, can I offer a different perspective, instead of just giving them your perspective without them being open to it. And one of the most important things also is don't demonize your adversaries. You know, again, we're all in this together, and it doesn't help when people become the villains and victims in this scenario. Find common ground. And one of my most important mantras is get curious, not furious. Thank you. I forget the most important thing. Lastly, this is something to consider, is developing an elevator speech. An elevator speech is a short speech that you memorize in case you were to meet the president in the elevator, President Biden in the elevator, what you would say to him in that moment. So what to consider is KISS, keep it short, less than 2 minutes, sincere, make sure it's from the heart, simple, and stick to the facts. And practice so that it's on the tip of your tongue when you need it. So we have big ambitions. Thank you for your time. And here we go. We're next. Anyone with any questions? Let me just check the time. I think we're okay. If not, I think we'll move on to our Harriet, who is going to talk to us about tabling tips and tricks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Harriet. Harriet, she is one of our chapter rock stars. She's our immediate past co-chair. She was co-chair of the chapter for 2 years, and she is our present treasurer. And she is such a behind-the-scenes person, and she really helps to keep our chapter running. She was trained in Los Angeles in 2018, has delivered over 20 climate presentations and engaged in countless climate conversations. She also has served as a mentor to over 100 climate reality leaders and has been active in both the Bay Area and Silicon Valley chapters. She's a former engineer and tech product marketing contractor, and she lives in Los Gatos. Okay, Harriet, take it away.
All right. Great to be here. Thank you all for hanging in here. It's been a wonderful almost 3 hours, and just really grateful to Bonnie and to Pam and Audrey and Wei-Tai and Gary for all that you've done to bring this together. It's just been inspiring. So I'm really happy to contribute what I may here in the way of another tactic for engaging people. Not everybody is 100% confident and comfortable with presenting, and that's perfectly okay. But there are other ways you can engage with people. And one of those is tabling at events. And even if you are a seasoned presenter, this is a way to meet people and bring them under the tent and connect with them, engage your community. So I am going to share a screen. Tabling tips and tricks. It's just another way to spread the word about the IRA or about climate action or about something really important you care about. It's a great way to engage people one-on-one using some of those conversation techniques that Bonnie just shared with us. One of the funnest things I love to do is just go table at events and just connect with people. So it's also an opportunity, though, to get presentation gigs, to bring people into our movement, to our organization, the Climate Reality Project, or to the chapter. And just like I say, a really fun way to connect and take action with others. So, what are some options for engaging? There are Earth Month events all throughout April, and lots of opportunities there. There are EV and home electrification shows. Somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, green home tours. Sometimes they have an exhibitor area. CCA Community Choice Aggregator, that's a big word for these great public energy companies that provide clean energy, like Peninsula Clean Energy here in the Bay Area. I know we have some people on the call that are not all California based. So there are events from clean energy providers, farmers markets, events hosted by other NGOs. That's a really rich area to engage. Also a good way to kind of connect with other groups and support each other's events. Church and community events, school events. It doesn't necessarily have to be climate related, as you'll see in some of the examples I'm going to share. So any opportunity to engage works. So here are a few examples I'll just highlight. This was a climate fair at the Jewish Community Center here in Los Gatos that I did with the Silicon Valley chapter a couple of years ago. Rotary Day of Service. This is our climate justice team. This is at the San Francisco Bay shoreline. They had some activities there too that I'll talk about in a minute. This is a fun one. Here's Gary with a young climate reality leader at a STEM event for high schoolers to learn about STEM education and opportunities. And I want to add here that there was also the mayor of San Francisco was there, and it was an opportunity for these climate reality leaders to connect with these civic leaders. E-bike car shows are held all around the Bay frequently. So here's me with Karen Mendelo Nelson at one in Marin County. And here's there's a climate fair again. I mentioned earlier, Earth Day events. This was in Alameda, and those are our Alameda County leaders there. And there was a student service fair here at Los Gatos High School. I want to point out a couple of things. One thing, a little tip and trick here is don't make tall signs because they blow around. So I put a lot of work into making that sign, and it was like no point in doing that. The other thing I'll point out is the Los Gatos High School, and I'm not going to necessarily take credit for a causal relationship here, but that summer after I appeared at that event, the environmental science teacher got 20 of those students, of her students, to attend climate reality training. So I've had a good relationship with that group. And so there are those opportunities that can come out of that. So some considerations, fee and cost. This is a big one. Many events are free to exhibitors, and just seek those out. But if an organization says, oh no, we need X number of dollars, you can just ask for a fee waiver or a discount. Just say, we are an all volunteer nonprofit organization trying to save the planet. And a lot of times they will just comp your participation. So, I'll say our chapter never expects anyone to pay to table, but we also really don't have the capacity to underwrite all the opportunities our chapter members might want to pursue. Props, attire, materials. I'll talk more about all of these. Keep it simple. And really, that smile is the most essential thing to bring to these opportunities. Wear your green ring. That's a big one. And if you have a climate reality t-shirt, that's a good idea. Props, collateral activities. But you can do as much or as little as you like. Simplicity is totally fine. Bring yourself ready to engage and talk. Helpers. It's not a bad idea to have at least 2 people to kind of help share the work so you can take breaks. So dressing the part, you can see me here with Karen again. I'm wearing my climate reality t-shirt and a green ring. Karen just has a nice environmentally focused t-shirt on. That's totally fine. Smiles are mandatory. Green rings for sure, if you haven't. And climate reality t-shirt, if you have one. I'll also just share very quickly here that the t-shirts and hats and other goodies are available at the Climate Reality store. And I've included a QR code there if you're interested in purchasing one. So on your setup, keeping it simple is totally fine. You can see here is Gary again with some other young climate leaders at another tabling event in San Mateo County. They have a few things on the table for people to look at, but they're there just mostly to engage in conversation. So it doesn't have to be fancy or complicated. And then you can see here on the left, we have Kate Carlson, one of our Alameda squad members. And, she's got the chapter banner there and a couple of climate reality slogan signs. But again, doesn't have to be terribly involved. You can bring some printable flyers and business cards, and always good to bring a sign-up sheet. So afterwards, you can follow up with people on how they can engage further with you or with our organization. So here are some more ideas I'll just point out on tabling props. This here is a flip chart easel. This particularly can be helpful if you have something like Audrey's wonderful deck about the IRA. It flips and they're very cheap. They're like $20 on Amazon. You can do it for free with a binder you have somewhere and just use the plastic page holders. And you can, if you want, do an activity. This is a spinner wheel trivia game. It can be a lot of fun, a way to bring people to the table and have them hang out a little longer. And then just some other little incidentals. Acrylic sign holders can be helpful. That way you're not having to, create, put a backing on flyers to show them to people. And I think we'll move on. And again, on the activities, here's that spinner wheel that the Alameda squad was using. I'll point out here, Karen Mendelo Nelson put together these little kind of cards that have little prompts about climate issues. And it's just somebody draws a card and then you have a conversation about it. And she made these just on her own. And you can do a craft project. You can have kids plant trees or little plants, or this was the climate justice group at that Bay Shoreline event. They had a sign making activity where people could make these signs. And I think they then took them the next day to a march in San Francisco. And then lastly, cheap treats and giveaways are always nice. And you can get these things on Amazon. These are just little Earth chocolate balls. And then you can get these stickers, like 400 for $5 or something. So those are just some nice little things to have to draw people to the table. I'll talk a little bit about collateral. Really, the main thing is this first bullet. You want to tailor what you're bringing to the event and the audience. So, different events, the STEM event that I mentioned would be a different audience, different interest than it would be if you went to a Sierra Club event, for example. So that's first and foremost. Always be prepared to share info about Climate Reality Project and training opportunities, and also about your chapter. If you live in an area where there's a Climate Reality chapter, that's an option as well. Business cards. You may have your own Climate Reality business cards if you did that after training. And some chapters like ours have our own business cards that you can share with people. The IRA one-pager that Climate Reality makes available, that's on the Reality Hub. That's a great thing, of course, if you want to engage people on the IRA. The slide deck I mentioned earlier with that flip chart. And then, how people can arrange to book presentations with you. And then I mentioned here 5 ways to engage flyer. I'm going to show an example of that in a minute, and that sign-in sheet once again. So for people that are in the Climate Reality Bay Area chapter, some of these items we do have available on a shareable drive, and I'll share my email unless someone else wants to share it for me in the chat for people that want to inquire. So flyers, just one little tip here, save some trees. We really encourage people to just avoid hard copy handouts unless it's just something you really, really want to do. Let your participants take photos instead of flyers. Just make one copy. And then if you like and you're handy with it, you can always include QR codes so they can easily access resources right there. And here is that 5 ways to engage with Climate Reality flyer, again, showing the example of those QR codes that you can insert. So I'll close out just by showing these amazing, beautiful pictures of people taking climate action by engaging the public. So engage, have fun, and it's a great way to make a difference. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing, and hopefully, with 6 minutes to spare.
Any questions? That was great, Harriet. It's a great opportunity to do those kind of mini presentations. And I think Harriet brought up a great point about it's very important, even with a present of an official or a formal presentation, that you tailor your presentation to your audience. It's so important. As she said, talking to a STEM group is going to be really different than talking to the Sierra Club or to a city council. So anyway, very good. Okay, great. So seeing no questions, why don't we move? Pam, are you I'm
yes,
sure you're still
ready.
in the house.
Yep.
She's going to take it home for us.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I just want to say that for those of you who didn't get a green ring, please reach out to climaterealitybayarea@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that I follow up with headquarters that you get one if you went through April training and didn't receive a green ring. That was a big chat on there. So one thing too, people mentioned this, right? Gary mentioned it. You heard Harriet mention it. Wei-Tai mentioned this, finding a partner or mentor, right? And this Helen Keller quote is so true, right? Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. I was IMing with some of my fellow leaders here, and I am so honored and just amazed by the leadership team and the volunteer group we have here. We are so fortunate to be in the Bay Area, to be able to make a difference. So I just want to say thank you to everybody and being on this call. But how can you find a partner, right? Pair up with other chapter members. Don't be afraid to reach out. If you want to put in climaterealitybayarea@gmail.com and say, I need a mentor, we'll figure it a way out, right? Remember, we're all volunteers here and everybody's willing to help others in getting things done, right? Leverage those existing resources that are available out there. And if you think of a new resources idea, great, create it and pass it on. I just want to say that because we all are full of ideas, and if everybody can help implement, we can share and just build our resource library up so much. And then mentor others, right? You guys just went through this training. Tell them about it. We're going to share these resources with you, pass them on, help educate and drive others in this Acts to Action message across the Bay Area, and just do it, right? I just added this bullet in here. We don't need perfection. As evidenced today, due to all the technical issues we have, I'm still without power. I still have power on and I'm doing through my phone, right? I'm doing a Wi-Fi through my phone. So just realize that you're going to have that, and, basically put those out there. If you're in a presentation and you have those issues, just say, hey, I just want you to understand, here's what's going on, and just do it. I think that was great. And I loved the quote Wei-Tai put out there. So. And just get involved. I'm just going to highlight a few of our ways on our chapter that you can get involved. We have 3 kind of forms of teams, our action teams. We have climate justice team. You heard from Siri Louie giving our land acknowledgement, and they have a wonderful program around getting involved with various kind of 3 program areas around that. And we have a climate justice page on our website you can go to. Our policy action team, Audrey Heller, who you heard from, and Margot Meerman lead those. And then our county squads. Bonnie is a county squad leader for Solano County. And those are where you can learn to take individual action in your communities. Wei-Tai got me involved right away when I trained in July of 2020 to write an email to my local Contra Costa County squad or Contra Costa County Commission. So take advantage of those, get people involved, sign them up. That whole tabling thing Harriet talked about. Table at your local farmers market. You can find out that you can table for free right outside. Set up a table. You can sign them up for the squad, inform them about Climate Reality Bay Area chapter, and you can inform them on Inflation Reduction Act. That's a great way to do that. Our engagement teams, right? We have alliances and business engagement. That's actually an open leadership role we have. Open, and you guys can figure out how you want to do those roles. That's really it, right? If you're a leader in a position within our chapter, you get to define what you want to do and how you want to make it be during your term as that leader. Presentations, Bonnie, thank you so much. This was such a valuable day that we all spent together, along with a lot of other people that helped. But kudos to Bonnie for helping us with that. Young adult and youth, I believe Alice Sung joined, and I'm not sure if Josh Mordaunt was on. And they help to drive, and they're working on a climate curriculum event that hopefully we'll have in the fall. And then our chapter operations teams, communications, Alakoka Kalani's on, wonderful young leader that we have on our team that works across our website, across our social media channels, our newsletters, and it's been able to extend our reach in the Bay Area and beyond with our message and education and everything else that we do. Our events and programming, Sue, Kevin, and Heather, you met on the call. Big shout out to them. They help everything in our events online, driving things forward and being able to edit all of our activities that we put up on YouTube as well. Financial management, Harriet goes way beyond financial management and helps us with so many more. And member engagement, Mary Ruth Gross, that's a team. We need people to help reach out to new members, right? How can you get involved? What do you want to do? Do you want to do something new? And then our operations chair, a new role recently filled by Michael Allio, who's going to help try to string all of these together, right? It was kind of this missing piece that, how do we band together and move forward to be able to make the 1,600 volunteers that we have in the Bay Area and help them be more effective. Ways to learn more about CRBA. You can capture this if you haven't seen it. This is our email address and our website. We have very active across Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. We had somebody that wanted to launch a podcast when they trained in October 21. If you haven't listened to it, the Everyday Climate Champions. And then the Climate Action Now app, right? I think everybody that went through training knows that, and you can take 5 actions per day. So there's so many ways that you can get engaged and involved and help if you want to help on one of these teams to create content. If you want to write a blog on something, please do that. You can submit it, let us know, and reach out to one of the teams on our website, and they can get you more involved with that. So the voice, the vote, the choices, inspiring others to act. And Sue Bach, thank you for being on this call. You kind of helped ignite that in me, that's kind of one of the guiding lights that our chapter has this year, is to inspire others to act at home, work, or school, in their communities, through local, state, and federal legislation, and always with passion and conviction, knowledge and fact, compassion and understanding, a sense of urgency, solutions and creativity, and always hope. Remember, hope is passion for what is possible, and that it's not too late. According to the UN, the Earth has about 10 years to cut greenhouse gas emissions and carbon emissions to prevent irreversible damage to the climate. And once the world reaches net zero, global temperatures will stop increasing as soon as 3 to 5 years. And if we halted our net carbon emissions, about half of the human-made carbon dioxide would be taken out of the atmosphere. So thank you. We look forward to you joining our chapter and getting involved as much as possible.
Wow, Pam, that was really, really great. Thank you so much for bringing us all home. And that was just a wonderful way to end. And I do want to say that the folks who are on the call who are not in our area, because I know that there are some folks calling in from other places around the country, you can do this too in your local jurisdiction. I'm sure at least I would be very helpful, and I'm sure anyone in our leadership team would help any other chapter, either, buff up or get off the ground or whatever. We're all in this together to do this really, really important work. And we want to have a great time doing it, which I'm just thrilled to be in it with all of you. I can't believe that all of you have hung out with us for 3 hours. That's pretty amazing. So big kudos to all you folks.